This is Texas News Now, sponsored by Germania Insurance.
I'm Chris Lawrence with your top stories in North Texas. Jurors are deciding Tanner Horner's punishment after he pleaded guilty to killing Athena Strand. On Wednesday, her mother took the stand, describing the night her daughter went missing. Here's senior crime and justice reporter Rebecca Lopez.
Athena Strand's mother, Maitland Gandy, faced the man who killed her child.
This is her red bow.
Is that the same red bow that we see in that picture?
Holding up her daughter's bow, she introduced the jury to 7-year-old Athena, not as a victim, but as her little girl.
She was free, and she was wild, and she was bright, and she was loving.
She told the courtroom about the last time she saw Athena when she dropped her off to visit her dad.
I had a little bit more than 24 hours left with her. I just didn't know it at the time.
It would be the last time Maitland saw her daughter alive. Just hours later, her sister would frantically knock on her door.
You would have thought the house was on fire. I opened the door and she said, "Athena's missing."
What followed was a desperate search, a mother refusing to give up.
I walked that county road over and over and over again. I searched Jacob's ponds, but she wasn't there.
She told jurors something inside her knew her daughter was gone forever.
It felt like I was dying. I couldn't breathe.
The next time she saw Athena was at the funeral home when she put a gown on her.
When I got to her, she was so cold, and she didn't like the cold. So I wanted to make sure that she was dressed.
Her testimony was heart-wrenching, bringing some jurors in the courtroom to tears. Tanner Horner sat just feet away, staring straight ahead, as Maitland asked him for only one thing.
I was there when she took her first steps and said her first word, but I wasn't there when she took her last. So I want to know where her shirt is, because maybe he could give me that much grace.
She apologized to Athena, wishing she'd been there to protect her, but vowing to make sure people remember her and showing the world how much Athena was loved. In Fort Worth, I'm Rebecca Lopez.
Hundreds of independent vendors depend on Painted Tree boutiques, which just abruptly shut down. As Tiffany Liu reports, shop owners have to clear out their inventory with few answers why.
Owning a small business is not for the weak.
It's always on your mind.
It's why in a moment of crisis, they pivot.
This is really difficult for my small business.
All these people bustling in and out of the Painted Tree boutique in North Richland Hills are among thousands scrambling to remove their inventory out of the stores. Painted Tree Boutiques was known as a shop small destination where vendors rent a space and get paid for their sales.
I was up here within an hour of receiving the email.
The company on Tuesday emailed their tenants announcing a sudden closure of all stores. It gave them a 10-day window to retrieve inventory, but also said access to the locations are subject to the landlord.
There was a lot of tears and sadness, and also a little bit of anger as I felt kind of blindsided. We had no idea this was happening.
Shiloh Largent opened Sincerely Shiloh at Painted Tree more than 2 years ago.
Painted Tree was a huge part of my business.
It's her first small business, and she is focused on keeping it alive.
I am out a few $1,000s just in the sales. I won't be getting my security deposit back or my April rent.
Some owners have multiple locations in Texas, even across the country.
I kind of felt like it isn't real.
Carrie Wenner with booths in Grapevine and Mansfield.
I had just left and got a call as soon as I left the parking lot from the manager saying, "You need to come back. You need to get all your merchandise."
She cleared out her locations but is here to help a friend pack up.
She is in Grapevine. She has 2 booths there, 3 booths in Mansfield and 1 booth here, and she had just moved into a brand new location.
Carrie says her own payments were always weeks late.
Several vendors that haven't seen months of payment.
And without a moment's notice.
What they did yesterday is they stripped so many thousands of small businesses right from underneath their feet.
In North Richland Hills, I'm Tiffany Liu.
A major investment is bringing new life to southern Dallas. Earlier this year, city leaders approved millions of dollars to push the plaza at Halperin Park over the finish line. It promises to reconnect neighborhoods and spark major economic growth. Mitty Hicks shows us what to expect from the new deck park.
You'll have opportunity to sit, relax up here.
We're standing over 35E at South Lancaster Avenue. April Allen says the City View Terrace has the best views of Dallas at Halperin Park.
Over on my right, you've got the beautiful tree cover and topography of Oak Cliff. In the fall, this was beautiful with the fall colors.
But you don't have to wait for fall for fun colors.
So what are we looking at here?
Okay, so we're in the center of the children's playground. And this playground was inspired by the creeks and streams throughout Oak Cliff. So it's got a whole treehouse in the woods inspiration.
And outside of the kids area.
And over here, we've got our great lawn. So this, of course, is our place where people can come picnic, relax, kick a ball.
The idea of this park started with residents nearly a decade ago who said they deserve more on this side of town.
We're in a part of Dallas that doesn't have as many of the amenities and maybe in other parts of the city.
So right now you see construction trucks here along the driveway, but once the park opens, park leaders say they hope to have food trucks replace them.
We actually just asked for food truck interest recently, and we got a wave of response.
And minutes away from the park is Lola's Cantina and Snacks, another anticipated opening in Oak Cliff.
Just a lot of rich history in Oak Cliff, and we're excited to be a part of what's growing here.
He says the park opening will have a trickle-down effect on the entire community.
It's good for business owners, it's good for community, it's good for families. Things flourish where people gather.
In Oak Cliff, I'm Mitty Hicks.
Several hospitals in Collin County are joining forces to raise their level of life-saving care. Richard Solomon shows us how new tech can shave off critical minutes and save lives.
When a patient comes through these doors,
this is the service that I would want them to be able to have access to.
And for people who have a heart attack, Medical City Frisco is now the first hospital in the city.
This is the FDA-approved transport ECMO pump.
With this potentially life-saving technology.
Being able to place a patient on ECMO significantly increases their chance of survival.
Dr. Patrick Liu says it's called the eCPR. He says it's used when traditional CPR isn't enough to restart the heart.
And you got to be about this speed. If this thing were ever to power down, we were to lose power.
The machine acts like a life-saving support system, mechanically circulating and oxygenating blood outside of the patient's body.
This is that artificial heart or artificial lung.
Starting this month, paramedics can alert teams at both Plano's and Frisco's hospitals, cutting down delays. Dr. Andrew Fredericks with Plano's division says this is a medical breakthrough.
We take that person who has a 1% chance to live. When we do this device, this type of therapy, it's 50%.
It buys doctors time to save vital organs and also finds out what caused the issue.
And it truly will be standard probably in the next decade.
Because in moments like this, technology doesn't matter. It's about time.
Yes, without a doubt, without a doubt.
And now more of it could mean more lives saved. In Frisco, I'm Richard Solomon.
Every second counts. And those are your headlines from North Texas.
Let's take a look at today's headlines across Houston. Hello, I'm Len Cannon. We are watching a high-stakes dispute unfold between the city of Houston and the state of Texas over a controversial immigration policy. The state has revoked $110 million in funding over a new HPD immigration ordinance. Now the mayor is pushing to overturn that ordinance to get the funds restored. Last week, City Council approved the ordinance clarifying when officers can detain someone for immigration purposes. The mayor says the loss of funding has already had an immediate impact, including cuts to police overtime. He calls it a serious blow for public safety, especially with the World Cup coming to town. Maria Aguilera getting reaction from both sides of this issue.
Tonight, a growing dispute between the city and the state over an immigration ordinance Houston City Council recently passed. Now turning into a back and forth over what happens next.
The governor has the authority to give and take monies away, and we better listen to him, and that's my responsibility as mayor, and that means working with Austin to get them to restore the monies that they froze yesterday.
Mayor John Whitmire says the state has already frozen $110 million in funding, forcing immediate changes, including cuts impacting Houston police. He says the priority is getting that money back.
And I'm asking for 1 day. I'm asking for 1 day to go to court.
I respectfully disagree.
That exchange highlighting the divide as some council members push to take this fight to court. Attorneys with the ACLU of Texas, like David Donati, argue the ordinance at the center of this fight does not stop police from working with federal immigration authorities. But state officials argue it goes too far, saying it limits how Houston police can coordinate with ICE.
I don't deny that this is a huge impact on the city of Houston, $110 million to public safety. We are talking about police and firefighters. We are literally talking about an effort to defund the police because Governor Abbott doesn't like the ordinance that our elected officials implemented last week.
Meanwhile, Houston City Controller is urging city leaders to hold their ground. In a statement, he says in part, this ordinance is grounded in a simple principle: protect Houstonians while upholding the law. The mayor and the city attorney agreed that this approach was legal, adding that the city attorney should be in court immediately fighting this attempt by the governor to defund the police. With different views from city leaders, attorneys, and elected officials, the question now is whether to fight the state in court or change course.
To be determined. That was Maria Aguilera reporting. A former Baytown High School guidance counselor facing serious charges. Investigators say she had an inappropriate relationship with a student that started when that student was 14. The boy telling authorities the counselor said she transferred to his high school to follow him when he became a freshman. Matt Doherty with more on the story.
According to court records, the investigation started with a question. Late last year, a Goose Creek CISD police officer says a 15-year-old student at Lee High School asked a staff member what happens to a district employee if they sexually assault a student. The question led to more questions from investigators, who say the boy ultimately told them a high school counselor had been sexually assaulting him for years. The court documents state 43-year-old Lorinda Picardo first approached the boy when he was 14 years old. Court records indicate the boy claims she allegedly told him he was cute, got up from her desk, and then kissed him. As time passed, the teen says Picardo would regularly have him come to her office during his school day to do schoolwork, even reportedly telling the teen that she loved him. When the teen moved on to high school, he said he thought things would end. But one day he says he saw Picardo in the hallway. That's when he claimed she told him, quote, I transferred to your school to be with you. Then the teen says things escalated. He told investigators Picardo would get jealous if he talked to girls, and he lost friends due to her controlling nature. Investigators say the counselor's intentions were confirmed through text messages with the teen, made outside of school hours. Tonight, Goose Creek CISD tells us Picardo is no longer an employee of the school district and that she has not worked there since the end of last year.
That was Matt Doherty reporting. The city is issuing a warning about the threat of human trafficking during the upcoming World Cup. KHU 11's Katira Winfrey sharing more on our Instagram about the city's efforts to keep people safe.
We are just a couple of months out from the start of the FIFA World Cup, and with that, law enforcement as well as the Houston airport system says that increases the chances for human trafficking. We're going to be having people coming to Houston from around the globe. So with so many people, they say the risks go up. Officials say trafficking is often happening right in front of our very eyes, and Houston is not immune to it. As a matter of fact, may be at even more risk considering how large our airports are, and that's often how trafficking victims are moved from place to place. I got a chance to speak to a trafficking survivor. She started being trafficked at 10, being moved from Fort Bend County into Houston, and ultimately sent back and forth to Lubbock to be abused. They say it's important that we recognize the signs. So in addition to people keeping their eyes peeled, the Houston Police has a task force along with other agencies who will be paying attention to this and cracking down on those perpetrators and also working to bring those trafficking victims to safety.
Katira Winfrey reporting there. Big ships, big excitement along the Houston Ship Channel as Fleet Week gets underway in Houston. Michelle Choi takes us inside the action at Bayport.
A powerful sight over Houston, Navy ships sailing in, marking the first ever Fleet Week in the city. At Bayport, the USS Kearsarge, the flagship, docking just before midday, where we got a closer look both outside and inside at its capabilities, including a medical wing designed to handle mass casualties.
And it's an amphibious assault ship. It carries U.S. Navy sailors and U.S. Marines. So a lot of combat capability.
The USS St. Louis also arriving today and docking at Pier 8 in Houston. That's where the public will get a chance to step on board with free tours starting tomorrow. Rear Admiral John Hewitt says Fleet Week is about connecting with the public.
We want to give back to the community. We want to show the American taxpayer where your tax dollars are going. And with the sailors and the Marines that are aboard this ship right now, there's a lot of pride, and they want to engage with Houstonians.
For the service members, what does it mean to be able to do this as well?
They get to say what it's like to be in the Navy or the Marine Corps, maybe inspire that next generation that want to put on the cloth of the nation.
Among the service members, Ensign Alyssa Bias, a full circle moment for the Deer Park High School graduate who serves on the board.
I think getting to be a part of this on my first ship and my first real tour outside of Norfolk, being able to come home, is super exciting. Shout out Deer Park, go Deer!
How about that? That's a wrap of your Houston headlines. I'm Len Cannon.
For insurance you can trust, help is just a handshake away. Find your local agent at yourmediainsurance.com.
Hello everybody, I'm meteorologist Jesse Hawila out of Dallas with WFAA, and as we take a look over the next few days at our Texas headlines, very warm on Thursday. I say rain moves out because most of the state, 95% or even more, will see no rain. I can't rule out a pop-up thunderstorm out toward the San Angelo area. That chance remains very low. Friday, warm and windy for much of the state. I mean, we'll have humid conditions too over the next few days before a cold front brings in drier air and cooler air for much of us on Saturday. Look at the next 3 days in Amarillo. You see where the cold front moves in. So it's windy Thursday and Friday. 64 on Saturday. That'll be a big difference, about a 22-degree drop between Friday and Saturday. Austin, you'll tap into the cold front with a chance for thunderstorms with it on Saturday. 74 from 90 on Friday. Corpus, not there yet, but it's still very warm and muggy with temperatures in the mid and upper 80s. But you see the thunderstorm chances. That will come with the cold front. That includes San Antonio and Waco. Cooler temperatures with highs only in the upper 60s in Waco on Saturday, with a chance for a few thunderstorms. Those not severe. So highs on Thursday, very warm across the state. Brownsville 85, Corpus 83, DFW 87, Midland 88, Lubbock 88 degrees, Big Bend 82. Let me run you through the timeline. There's that very low chance out towards San Angelo and Abilene, maybe. I mean, if you have really low chance of a pop-up thunderstorm briefly Thursday evening. Then we're dry overnight Thursday. Friday, dry across the state. There's 7 p.m. We'll be watching that cold front closely. Much higher risk of severe weather up into parts of Oklahoma and Kansas as this system swings through. And then as it gets into Texas, Saturday morning from DFW down to Del Rio, the Big Bend, there will be at least a little axis of some rain and a few thunderstorms. Those, again, not severe when it moves through Saturday. Cooler, drier air will quickly push in. But behind that front, so before we get to that front, there will at least be a risk for a couple strong storms on Friday. Now, this level 1 is because of how incredibly isolated that risk would be. And we're talking 1 thunderstorm, maybe 2 within this region of 1, and then level 2 to level 3 up toward Oklahoma City and then up to Kansas City. That's where the highest risk of severe weather will be with this next storm system. There could be a couple storms, though, late Friday night into early Saturday with that cold front. Then through Saturday morning, again, a little bit of rain, some thunderstorms that would not be severe as this cold front moves down to the coast by Saturday night. So there will be some showers and storms accompanying that cold front. But the bigger story, minus the little bit of rain that comes with it, is the cool down and the drier air. We've been pretty warm and muggy for an extended stretch. This will bring a nice relief to a lot of you. West Texas, you see the drop in Lubbock. 89 Thursday, windy Friday 90, 67 on Saturday. Midland, you also drop into the 60s by Saturday. Central Texas, Austin, Waco, Fredericksburg, low chance of anything Thursday, Friday, slightly elevated when the front gets in Saturday. 74 in Austin on Saturday, 69 in Waco, Fredericksburg 67. South Texas, there it is, that chance for a few thunderstorms in San Antonio with the cold front. Down into the 70s for San Antonio, that'll feel nice. Temperatures, Corpus, Laredo, not tapping into much of a cool down on Saturday, a little bit better by Sunday. North Texas from the Metroplex, Weatherford, Denton, you see temperatures into the upper 60s on Saturday with mid-80s Thursday and Friday. Saturday still could be a chance for a shower or thunderstorm in North Texas with that front. East Texas, Houston, Beaumont, Tyler, mid-80s and humid Thursday. Friday also humid with highs around 85. Then that chance for a couple of showers or storms. Houston, Beaumont, and Tyler. Look at the drop by Tyler, 70. The front will get to the southeastern sections of Texas, Houston, Beaumont, certainly by Saturday evening. So Sunday will be a little bit cooler and drier than Saturday. Still in the mid-80s for Houston and Beaumont. Then for the Valley, McAllen, Brownsville, Mission, very warm. Thursday with highs in the 90s in McAllen, 93, Mission 93 on Thursday. Friday ahead of the cold front with that big storm system lifting into the plains. It'll turn very windy with wind gusts in the 30 to 40 mile an hour range on Friday. Highs in the mid 90s. Then Saturday, again, being that far south in the state, the cold front not really getting there in time to do much like it's doing in Amarillo or the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But still a little chance for a shower or thunderstorm on Saturday. Highs will stay right around 90 degrees.
For insurance you can trust, help is just a handshake away. Find your local agent at yourmediainsurance.com.
I'm Quita Culpepper in Austin, and property appraisals are out, and it's time for homeowners to decide whether they want to protest their value. Now, it happens every year, but it's more complicated this time around for people living along Big Sandy Creek in northwest Travis County. That area is still recovering from last July's devastating flooding. KVU's Daniel Gomez shows us how the Travis County Appraisal District is helping.
I don't know how far down the county comes onto the property.
Sue Winsett just got her property tax appraisal notice.
Well, we've been waiting with bated breath for the appraisal to come in, and they removed the value of the dwelling, the improvements, the house, because there's no home. There's nothing left.
But the value of her land remains the same.
87%, I think, is what the county said now is in a flood zone. So we only have 13% left that we could build on or be permittable, and part of that is a canyon ridge.
On that ridge is the RV Sue and her husband have been living out of since the July 5th floods. The water taking trees, homes, and lives along Big Sandy Creek.
Certainly this year, a lot of us are getting shocked with these appraisals.
On Saturday, the Travis Central Appraisal District is holding a clinic for residents along the creek. A district spokesperson says they want to help homeowners understand notices and the protest process.
Look at all that.
Appraisal notices don't let Sue and neighbors know how much the appraisals took flood damage into account, so the district hopes to help them through it.
It feels a little bit more like the storm after the storm. We certainly do not have the same value of our property. Our property is certainly devalued, and so we would love for the county to give us a break.
A break that Sue believes can allow for a better shot at rebuilding. Daniel Gomez, KVU News.
3 different women-owned businesses in Austin claim the same person has stolen from their stores over the past 4 months. Owners of Clove and Maven say their shop was the latest target this past Sunday. KVU's Jessica Cha has more.
Almost every item in Clover and Maven you can buy is handcrafted by a local artist.
It's over like 100 local women, queer, ally makers.
Co-owner Ryan Doolittle.
Yeah, is this your first time in?
Says the shop exists to support those artists, many of them women.
It amplifies, honestly, our joy to provide this platform and support our friends, basically.
So Doolittle says on Sunday when a woman came into her store and stole several items, that hurt.
She took some of the necklaces from this guy, and then all the busts up here had necklaces on them as well. She took them all down, right under a sign that says, "Each item you see is the result of hours of artistry from local small businesses. If shoplifted, it takes directly from a real person's livelihood."
She says the woman took around $1,000 worth of merchandise, which they're now paying out of pocket to replace. So Doolittle took to social media to share what happened, garnering nearly 2 million views on Instagram.
The community support from this has been overwhelming.
But it also got the attention of others.
Lovecraft and Kindred Spirits reach out to us and tell us that from our footage they believe they had been hit and shoplifted by the same lady.
The owners of Kindred Spirits and Lovecraft shared these images of a similar looking woman in their stores from 2 weeks ago and also in December. In statements shared with us, both owners said the woman ran out of their store with items in her hands or underneath her clothes.
I do believe that the total amounts up there were more like $2,500 and $3,500. What it takes to create these items and work so hard and invest in everything. And it says to me that she has no care for that and no respect.
Doolittle says she has filed a police report. A spokesperson with APD says this case is under active investigation. In Austin, Jessica Cha, KVUE News.
This week marks 1 year since a devastating explosion rocked a neighborhood in northwest Austin. A home exploded on Double Spur Loop last April, damaging about 24 other homes. KVUE's Brianna Perez shows us why some neighbors say they're still dealing with damage and frustration a year later.
Repairs show no signs of slowing down. 1 year after a home explosion connected to a propane gas leak shook this northwest Austin neighborhood.
It's like we live in a neighborhood that looks like it's been in a war zone, and it still looks like that. And that's real sad.
Shirley Bell has lived in this neighborhood for 15 years, but since the explosion, she's been staying in a rental while crews repair her home.
And the ceiling's down, insulation down because it's in the ceiling. The garage area was just about destroyed. They had to almost rebuild the inside of the garage and rebuild her sunroom.
Bell says repairs have cost around $140,000 and have taken months. But for some neighbors, progress hasn't come as quickly.
It's been a year now, and a lot of our neighbors are just starting the process of rebuilding.
1 year later, this is what the neighborhood looks like. Some homes are still boarded up waiting for repairs, while others are starting over completely. Carol Shockroll lived right next door to the home where the explosion happened, and she says it's a day she will never forget.
I stood up, opened, let my cats out, sat down on the side of the bed, thank God, and 5 days later I was coming off life support.
Shockroll was alone in the home at the time. She was left with multiple injuries, including a broken right arm, clavicle, and ribs. Since the explosion, she says she has had 4 surgeries on her hand.
I did throw my hand over my face. My arm took the brunt of all the debris falling on me. They had to extract me. It took them an hour to get me out from under the debris.
She says the blast not only left her with injuries, but also took away her chance to say goodbye to her husband of 46 years, who died while she was in the hospital. Still, she says she's grateful just to be alive.
I have 2 wonderful grandchildren. I've gotten to see them for another birthday, another Christmas, and now another birthday coming. If anything, this accident has taught me to live in awe and wonder, to depend on the kindness of strangers and the great love of family and friends.
In Austin, Brianna Bettis, KVUE News.
An Austin man is facing a terroristic threat charge after causing thousands of dollars in damage at a South Austin restaurant over the weekend. Police say Baron Heinrich flipped tables, smashed glasses, and damaged a fountain drink machine inside 888 Pan Asian off Old Torf on Sunday. Investigators say he began destroying property without warning, leaving employees and customers fearing for their safety. It took 8 officers to take him into custody. Police estimate Heinrich caused at least $40,000 in damage and forced the restaurant to lose thousands more in business. On Wednesday, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas delivered a special lecture at UT, marking the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. He spoke about the importance of teaching Western civics and taking a closer look at the meaning and principles written into the Declaration itself.
In essence, the signers of the Declaration were saying that they were willing to die for the principles they were asserting, the supreme act of courage. Those principles were more important than their fear.
The university presented Thomas with a Longhorns jersey and invited him to come back anytime. Justice Thomas also mentioned he's hired and worked with many UT graduates throughout the course of his career. And that's all from us here in Austin. Have a great day.
Here's your headlines from Southeast Texas. I'm Mark Armstrong. New court filings in Jefferson County showed the family of Reginald McGee, one of the 3 workers killed in last year's Port Arthur LNG collapse, may have reached a settlement with the companies involved. The terms they have not been made public, and the court has appointed an independent attorney to review the agreement. Other lawsuits tied to the collapse, they are still moving forward. The suspects in a cell phone burglary in Beaumont, they have been identified in that cell phone store. 4 minors, they broke into the mobile zone on College and 4th early Monday morning. The store owner says 2 of them, they came in around midnight and stole some items and then left, but then 4 of them came back to finish the job. He says that they took about $50,000 worth of electronics in addition to the damage that they caused. An initiative was announced in Jefferson County Commissioner's Court this week for a proposed youth center in Beaumont called the Southeast Texas Youth Support Services Campus. The nonprofit Revision, it wants to develop 30 acres on Menyon Drive. That nonprofit paid just under $3 million for the property, and it wants the county to pay roughly half of that and other costs. The campus, it would provide mental health services, mentorship, and other resources. And a growing push in Hardin County to create a shared animal shelter. It's gaining traction. Supporters say it's long overdue. In just 10 days, more than 600 signatures have been collected on a petition. Organizers say they're going to need around 5,600 before going to the Commissioner's Board. Supporters say the lack of a county-run shelter, it led to an increase in stray and abandoned animals, with concerns growing even more following the recent arrest of a former Silsbee Animal Control Officer, Joshua Nolan, who now is facing charges of improper methods of euthanasia and cruelty to non-livestock animals.
It is inhumane and it needs to stop. And whether it's they can't afford to have their animals spayed or neutered, we can look into that. I have tons of ideas for programs for that. And we need to get down to that core issue of why this is happening and address it.
Silsbee's mayor says there are currently multiple applications for the vacant animal control officer position. And across Southeast Texas, shrimpers are feeling the effects of those rising fuel prices since the Iran war began. They say the costs are making it harder to even leave the dock. Now, before the war started, diesel prices, they were around $3.25 a gallon, but now it's more than $5. And the market price for shrimp, it's not helping either. 12 News reporter Daniela Tabuada-Palau, she spoke to the Southeast Texas shrimpers about the tough position they're in.
We cannot operate on these prices. There's just no way.
Liesl and Kyle Kimball are brothers, both making their living on the water. Although they work on smaller shipping boats, they say everyone is struggling with rising fuel prices.
It was coming down quite a bit, and then now it's gone up to, we've seen as high as $5.
Diesel prices in Southeast Texas sit at $5.20 a gallon, a couple cents less than the Texas and national average.
They can go a month and a half, 2 months on fuel, but they'll spend $150,000, $200,000 on fuel right now at the prices.
Shrimpers like the Kimballs spend days at sea, burning up to 12 gallons of diesel an hour. On larger boats, trips can last up to 1 month, burning through between 20 to 40 gallons an hour, numbers that are keeping those boats docked.
We're better off just leaving the boats tied up right now.
Liesl says he's only taken 2 trips this year, and with shrimp selling for just $1.80 to $3 a pound, any profit is going back into their tank.
The import prices are anywhere from $1.50 to about $3.50 more a pound than what we get. Just depends on what's out there. This whole thing ends up kind of being a gamble because you don't know what's out there right now.
A gamble that's becoming more and more risky.
I don't see much of a future in it. I mean, people are just, nobody wants to get in it and nobody wants to keep fishing in the industry.
In Jefferson County, Danielle Tabuada-Palau, 12 News.
And those were the headlines from Southeast Texas.
Hi, I'm Brennan Gurley, and here's what's making headlines across East Texas. After nearly 2 years without answers, an East Texas family is finally getting some closure. The body of a man who disappeared in 2024 has been found. We spoke with his family when he first went missing, and now CBS 19's Nayeli Carrillo has the latest from law enforcement.
Authorities say a missing man has been found dead inside an abandoned home near Brownsboro, ending a search that began in 2024.
Units responded, our investigators responded, and then Brownsboro Police Department also went out there with us and found a deceased male.
Brady Booth was last seen in September 2024 before seemingly vanishing. For years, his family searched for answers. CBS 19 spoke with him just weeks after he went missing as a part of our Unsolved East Texas series.
I never really thought that it would happen to my family. Ultimately, him being missing and us really not knowing anything.
His family told us back then his disappearance was out of character.
It doesn't make really much sense for him to just not be here. You know, it's just not like him.
Investigators followed countless leads, searching across East Texas.
Tips that came into Henderson County Crime Stoppers, and we looked into every one of those and just ran into a wall.
Then Monday, a call changed everything. The sheriff says clothing found at the scene matched what Booth was last seen wearing.
We were able to locate the clothing that he was last seen in the video at the local store there in Brownsboro. Was the same clothing that we found at the residence out there at the abandoned house. So looks like he went to that residence and passed away shortly thereafter.
An autopsy found no signs of trauma, and officials say there's no indication of foul play. Toxicology results are still pending. In a statement, Booth's mother, Christy Levazar, says in part, "I'd just like to thank everyone for their prayers and support over the last year and a half. All the people that shared his picture and looked for him, it was all greatly appreciated. Sadly, this is not the outcome we wanted, but at least now we can have some closure."
We feel strongly that there was no foul play, which I think helps the family. There was no trauma to the body, which I think helps the family. So it's a bad situation, but I think we were able to give them some good, peaceful answers.
Investigators say the case is not over, but for this family, the search that lasted nearly 2 years has finally come to an end. Reporting in Henderson County, Nayeli Carrillo, CBS 19.
In East Texas, a young cattle rancher is proving that innovation and agriculture go hand in hand. As the demand for food continues to grow, one Henderson teen is using advanced breeding techniques to help feed more people, starting right here at home. CBS 19's Jamie Hazard has the story.
In Henderson, cattle ranching is more than a tradition, it's a way of life. And for 15-year-old Baxter Whitworth, it's also a business. As the owner of Top Notch Cattle Company, Whitworth is focused on raising high-quality cattle while using modern genetics to grow his herd and improve efficiency.
I've always grown up on a commercial cow-calf operation here. I started showing cattle, and I started with a steer. But I was always interested in wanting to show a heifer, and I got the opportunity, and from there I really fell in love with it, and that became my passion.
That passion quickly turned into a plan, investing in his own herd and building it from the ground up, using his own genetics.
From there, I started my herd. I was raising bred and owned calves, and which means that I owned the cow that those calves were out of, so they were fully. They were my genetics, and also I'm getting to the point where I'm able to start selling some of my own cattle.
Whitworth specializes in Brahman cattle, known for their heat tolerance and ability to improve other herds through crossbreeding.
So they work well in east and south and really most of Texas. Their advantage is crossbreeding and creating better genetics with other breeds.
That focus on better genetics doesn't just impact his ranch, it plays a role in the future for food production.
We have a growing population, and that means we have less land to feed that growing population on. And so if we're going to be able to do that, the people that are supplying our food are going to have to be profitable so that it's sustainable.
Whitworth's work is already gaining recognition.
I was blessed to be the 2025 Star Green Hand Production recipient at the Texas FFA State Convention last year, so that's a big success that I'm grateful for. I was blessed to be the champion bred and owned red female at the National Brahman Show last year.
His father says that success reflects on a bigger shift happening across East Texas agriculture.
His genetics from right here in East Texas are being sent around the country to help improve other herds as well.
And as land becomes more limited, that kind of precision ranching is becoming essential.
And the wave of the future is trying to do more with less and more productive with what we have, because we're having to feed more people on less land.
From Henderson to herds across the country, Whitworth's work shows how innovation in East Texas agriculture could help shape future of food one herd at a time. For CBS 19, I'm Jamie Hazard.
And that's a wrap of your East Texas headlines. I'm Brennan Gurley.
For insurance you can trust, help is just a handshake away. Find your local agent at yourmediainsurance.com.
I'm Bailey Bates. Here are your headlines from Central Texas. New information from a lawsuit claiming students from San Angelo were forced to exercise until collapsing, with dozens of teens hospitalized with life-threatening injuries. Our Juliana Jackson heard from the Waco attorneys who say this wasn't discipline, but physical and mental abuse.
A lawsuit filed in Dallas County is raising serious allegations about what happened inside a San Angelo gym after a jersey mix-up. In the complaint, families claim it started as punishment in gym class at Texas leadership of San Angelo. Attorney Ryan Johnson, who's representing the families in this lawsuit, says this was more than just discipline.
Do push-ups, sit-ups, up-downs for over an hour without breaks, without water. Without mercy.
The complaint claims the punishments happened with no water, no breaks, and no way out for 3 days. The plaintiff's attorneys write, quote, "When children collapse, the coaches ordered them to get up and continue."
It wasn't just on one coach, it was on the school district, and it was on the school itself.
In a statement to 6 News, the school says, quote, "We remain committed to maintaining a safe environment where students can grow, learn, and succeed." Students allegedly returned to school hurt, unable to lift their arms or even take care of themselves, but were made to keep going. The complaint shares this photo from the hospital and claims some students showed dark, discolored urine. Families allege at least 20 students were hospitalized and were diagnosed with a life-threatening condition called rhabdomyolysis.
Seen kidney damage, liver damage, organ failure, and ultimately death.
The complaint also claims, quote, "Not one adult lifted a finger to help." Attorneys say this case stands out because of how severe the claims are.
Dozens and dozens of kids going to the hospital with kidney failure. That's what makes this case unique.
Attorneys say the physical damages may not just be short-term for these students.
May not be able to do any physical exercise, either athletic or even work-related, for the rest of their lives.
The families in this lawsuit are asking for $1 million in damages. Meantime, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and students at one Central Texas university are raising awareness with a unique and powerful art display. 6 News reporter Sydney Walker tells us about the What Were You Wearing exhibit.
Inside Texas A&M University, Central Texas, is a room of stories.
It is called What Were You Wearing?
From survivors.
And the clothes represented what sexual assault survivors wore when they got sexually assaulted.
Angel Miles, who helped put the exhibit together.
Challenging the idea that what someone wears has anything to do with sexual assault.
Said they want to put an end to one question.
A lot of survivors do get asked, what were you wearing?
A question she says is harmful.
That question can shift the blame onto them instead of focusing on what actually happened.
The Title IX office posts a trigger warning outside.
It is a very vulnerable and sensitive topic.
And plays peaceful music inside for visitors.
Feeling that this really happened.
Weeks of researching real stories.
We put everything on a document, what they were wearing and their stories, and we printed out those stories.
Putting themselves in survivors' shoes.
We actually brought our own clothes from our house and we set up those outfits and put them all together.
Or the other way around.
Seeing my clothes out there from my own closet, it really opened my eyes.
It can happen to anyone.
It doesn't matter what race you are, how old you are, a boy or a girl.
If you or someone you know needs help, the National Sexual Assault Hotline is 1-800-656-4673. They are available 24/7 and can help connect you to a local crisis center. Those are your headlines from Central Texas.
I'm Isis Romero, and this is the news in San Antonio. The teacher who was injured in last month's shooting at Hill Country College Preparatory High School has been released from the hospital. The shooting happened on March 30th when officials say a 15-year-old student arrived on campus with a revolver, shot the teacher, and then himself. The Comal County Sheriff said the student had reportedly been struggling in school, but the investigation for a motive is still underway. Neither the student nor the teacher's name have been released. Testimony continues in Austin over last July's deadly flooding at Camp Mystic. Families are pushing to preserve the Guadalupe campus, where 27 girls died. The testimony comes as the camp looks to open its Cypress Lake site. Simone Simpson has the latest.
Mr. Wright looked at me and he said, "You're going to burn in hell." And then he told Mrs. Yarnell, "You're gonna burn in hell."
A fiery exchange between attorneys on the third day of testimony, one accusing the other over comments said after Tuesday's hearing, but the issue at hand.
My question that I would like to ask, is that the kind of conduct that Camp Mystic is responsible for in a proceeding where we are simply asking to preserve evidence so we can figure out what happened and get to the search for truth?
Whether the camp can make renovations to the Guadalupe campus, where 25 campers and 2 counselors lost their lives. The response by camp officials at the center of questioning.
My oldest son and I made an attempt to go that direction, and the water was extremely high. I knew there was no chance of getting across.
Katie Eastland is the director of Camp Mystic's Cypress Lake campus, which is on higher ground.
Why did you wait until 6:30 a.m.?
Well, the water was up so high. Also, it was dark, and I didn't know that anything really was happening over there. You couldn't see it.
Glenn Yankee, the security guard at Camp Mystic the night of the flood, helped move some girls to a 2-story building before getting trapped inside a cabin himself. He acknowledged Wednesday that if a general evacuation order came early in the storm, lives could have been saved.
I was very concerned about kids getting struck by lightning because the storm was on top of us.
Sure.
I never would see anything like that.
Okay. With respect to the severity of this storm, how would you describe it?
The worst thing that could have ever happened.
A judge will decide if Camp Mystic can continue to work on their property or not. The hearing will continue Monday. Simone Simpson, KENS 5.
A new partnership is changing how emergency calls are handled in New Braunfels. It hopes to save time, money, and resources. New Braunfels Fire has partnered with Right Site, joining San Antonio and other cities that already offer the service. Rania Kaur spoke to the fire chief about the benefit.
This partnership isn't costing New Braunfels any money, but the fire chief says the benefit is large. Instead of taking time and transporting every patient to the ER, now they're saving time and the patient's money. The majority of 911 calls for the fire department, Chief Rui Lozano says, are calls for emergency medical needs. He says 40 to 60% don't need to be transported to the ER. This is where Right Side comes in. When a paramedic reaches the call, they give the patient the option of speaking to a board-certified ER doctor through their tablet or phone. In 15 to 20 minutes, that doctor can diagnose what's going on, prescribe medicine, and even set up a follow-up.
Our goal is to meet our citizens where they are. And by doing an unnecessary transport to an ER really doesn't serve the patient, where instead we can take them to an urgent care center or just have medication delivered to their home.
At any point, a patient can opt out. Lozano says either insurance is billed or Right Side has a foundation that helps pay for the visit, so it's free for the patient. Ultimately, he says, the goal is to integrate this program through Dispatched. I'm told other cities like San Antonio already integrate the Right Side program. Rania Kaur, KENS 5.
Fiesta season is showing up in classrooms across San Antonio, and one local artist creation has even gone viral. It all started with a teacher's vision. Roxy Van Rooten has her story.
At Oak Meadow Elementary, Fiesta starts right outside the classroom door, where there's now a bright, hand-painted sign filled with Fiesta colors and designs created by local artist Caitlin Apaez.
I made this banner for my son's teacher. She reached out to me for their Fiesta parade. She just asked me if I could basically recreate the very popular Fiesta brand logo, like the label.
Well, this means everything to me. I've been wanting a sign like this outside my classroom for about 10 years now, and I just haven't had the time to do it. So, of course, Caitlin helped me out and made that possible.
And you can see it right away. It changes the space, not just how it looks, but how it feels walking into the room.
We're so happy to see this when they showed up Friday morning. They were just ecstatic. They're just so happy to learn about Fiesta, and they're ready to celebrate.
Now the class is getting ready for their own parade, building a float and taking part in Fiesta.
Our Oak Meadow Parade is next Thursday, April 23rd.
Something the whole class gets to be a part of.
Viva Fiesta!
Roxy Van Rooten, KENS 5.
And that's the news in San Antonio.
I'm Mike Gillespie in Corpus Christi, and here's a look at some of what's making news in South Texas. The timeline for a key vote on the proposed Inner Harbor desalination plant in Corpus Christi is now being pushed back. City leaders say that a major change involving the project's lead modeler has delayed a critical study of the bay, raising questions about what happens next. Michael Gibson has more from the Bayfront.
That city council meeting to vote on the Inner Harbor desalination plant project was set for April the 28th, and now it's going to be delayed by 30 days. That after the city learned that the top modeler for the company they hired to do the far-field study of the bay lost his job.
That study is important because city council wants to know what the impact of that desalination plant will be on our bay water system.
The company that that city council approved a contract for, Spheros, had a lead modeler, Jordan Ferdinand, who's familiar with the bay system and has done several studies here before. Unfortunately, we were informed yesterday that he's no longer with the company.
That change also forced the cancellation of this week's Far-Field Advisory Committee meeting, something that caught some board members off guard.
Like yesterday, I felt like my world was turned upside down because I've been advocating for this for 2 years. We had a set plan, a set person, a lot of trust in that person. And now, I have no idea what's going to happen.
Committee member Jason Hale says the work done so far was largely built around that modeler's plan.
This whole thing's like kind of his baby. He made the model for the port and we're building on that model. That was 2 years ago. So he already did a lot of the legwork. And then he basically laid out a vision that we'd said, this is what we want when we voted for it.
We asked the city manager whether or not early indications suggested that the desal plant would significantly impact bay salinity.
He seemed preliminarily confident that the Inner Harbor desal facility would be an okay plant in the Inner Harbor Ship Channel, given all the different things that take place in the ship channel.
The consulting firm has now asked for 30 more days to complete the study. A draft is expected to go before the advisory group in late May and then on to City Council in early June. Michael Gibson, 3 News.
If somebody accused me of something, I would bring out the truth and want to defend myself so everyone could know that's the truth.
You are saying that you want transparency and they gave it to y'all. You just don't like the answers. So that makes it a vendetta, and it's wrong.
I don't know how to say that any louder or any more clear. This is not a witch hunt. This is not a vendetta. This is not anything that a council member has just pushed to get here.
I personally think it's a distraction from what the voters of Corpus Christi want us to do, which is go find water.
Those just some of the voices inside City Hall where emotions were running high during this week's council meeting. In a 5-2 vote, members moved forward with an impeachment hearing against Mayor Paulette Guajardo. despite a temporary restraining order issued the day before by a federal judge blocking the city from taking certain actions against her. That hearing is now on the calendar for May 19th. Ahead of that, though, an injunction hearing to discuss the restraining order itself. It was held over Zoom with federal judge George Hanks Jr. questioning whether this is a political issue and whether the mayor's due process rights are being protected. The mayor's team called the impeachment process improper and conflicted, while the city says it's still in the early stages, arguing there's no basis for a preliminary injunction. We spoke with council members on both sides of the issue.
It's already started, and I think that at the time that a decision was made to move forward with articles that are obviously have all been proven false, and so I think at that point there's clear bias on the individuals, myself included, that there's clear bias on what the outcome is going to be.
The charter has a provision that you can suspend the offending council member for a period of 30 days prior to the trial or hearing. However, because the charges or allegations are not ours, we had never actually really considered that. And it doesn't make any sense.
Now, Judge Hanks ordered both sides to try to reach an agreement, or he'll step in with a ruling before the temporary restraining order expires on April 27th. And that is a quick look at just some of what's making news here in South Texas.
Texas News Now is sponsored by Germania Insurance.
For insurance you can trust, help is just a handshake away. Find your local agent at germaniainsurance.com.